are back on Inside Politics. Our guest today, Representative Mike Sparks from the Smyrna area. Representative Sparks, President Donald Trump this week made some remarks about Andrew Jackson and the Civil War. You and both of us grew up in Tennessee. We've always been interested in Andrew Jackson. But did you ever think that Andrew Jackson had anything to do with the Civil War? He was dead 16 years before it was fought. Yes,
sir. I never did either. But as a youngster, we always admired Andrew Jackson. I was with Donald Trump at the Hermitage, me and probably 60 other legislators, and many Democrats were there, and it was a very cold day, but I could tell that he connected with Andrew Jackson.
Do you think that perhaps President Trump was somehow confusing with the nullification crisis that Jackson won over John C. Calhoun, which was over trade in the 1830s, and somehow he got that confused with being involved, because that was about nullifying a federal act?
Yes, he may have, but I can tell you, Pat, watching him speak in front of the Hermitage, in front of that front door, and he talked about Jackson, his Irish heritage, and I guess the big banks back then. You could tell that he connected with Jackson, no doubt. I noticed an interview about a month ago at the White House, and behind him was the same statue that we see up here at the state capitol of Andrew Jackson on top of the horse. But
it's also in New Orleans.
Yes, sir. And you know, you're seeing pushback against Andrew Jackson too, but that is history. And the strange thing, Pat, is you see even a group like ISIS that's tearing down monuments. You've seen this in Germany back during back in the World War II era. And I just feel like people should remember the past.
We've talked about what's going on in other cities. We've talked about New Orleans, Richmond, and even Memphis have been taking down some of these post-war monuments that were built to major figures in the Confederacy. There are several Civil War related paintings and busts up on the Hill. Should those continue to stay there? It would take a very long and controversial process to remove them, but should Tennessee have a debate about that?
Well, I know we've had much of that debate. Representative Steve McDaniels has led much of that discussion. Senator Bill Ketron with the, I think it was the Historical Act Preservation. I believe it was passed in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. And I try to put myself in others' shoes, but if we're feeding people a false narrative, and that's where I think we've been fed a false narrative. This story that I've tried to bring apart is a story of redemption, and that author that I want to recognize talked about Nathan Bedford Forrest's redemption. And all of us, whether you're a lawmaker, have made mistakes in life, and as a Christian, there's a redemptive story in all of us who are Christians. And I think there was a redemptive story with Nathan Bedford Forrest, and that's all my resolution did here. You could look at this, it's about Shane Castler. It happens to mention he wrote a book, and for this to be controversial and what I'll call fake news, which really I welcome it, Pat, because people wouldn't know about this story of redemption. They wouldn't know about his book without this controversy. So the controversy really has been a blessing.
Have you spoken to him about it? What does he think about it? Have you spoken to him directly?
The author was like, hey, I'm sorry I got you in all this kind of trouble. I said, no problem. I mean, but as a Christian, you know, God will use the foolish things of the world to confound the wise, and the weak to shame the strong. So this controversy has really been a blessing, because I wouldn't be here with you discussing this issue about Samson Keeble, the first black lawmaker, if it wasn't for this controversy.
Now, the statue of Sam Davis we mentioned earlier, it is quite prominent on the Hill. It's right there at the corner of 7th and Charlotte. I mean, it's very visible from right there. You're concerned that there's going to be an effort perhaps to
I am concerned.
To move it down?
And it was before.
Are you surprised there hasn't been an effort already?
No, well, I feel like it's going that way. I do. I was at a veterans service about 2 years ago we just had in the paper, it was a discussion about the Forest Hall ROTC building, MTSU, and I seen the governor speaking at the podium, and behind him I happened to see the Sam Davis Monument and the Capitol. And while I was watching the governor, I said to myself, one day they're going to try to take that monument down of Sam Davis. And that's my community. Just like Samson Keeble was my community. Just like Forrest led a raid into the courthouse that I used to serve as a county commissioner on. All these folks are part of the history of my community. So for folks to think I'm stirring up controversy, I'm just telling the truth. That's all I've been telling.
The legislature has been at it since January. You're going to stay there now till mid-May, which is probably going to be a month later than you normally get out. Sometimes tempers get frared, things snap pretty quickly.
They do.
That plays some role in some of this?
They do, but I can tell you, the Black Caucus members, they may not want to tell you right now, I'm closer to those folks. Why would I stand with the Black Caucus last year? I mean, I have an award here that I received from an African American group, Hugs, for their Advocate of the Year for 2012. They put me on their calendar for January. And they said, what month do you want? I said, I'll take January because the Dr. King month. She was like, okay, January it is. So the controversy with African Americans, I can have a discussion with them. You know, I don't want to go alienate 10,000 African Americans that are potential voters for me. Why would I do that? Politically, there's no strategy with standing with the Black Caucus. There's no campaign donors or no votes for me in a sense.
Representative Sparks, thank you for coming in.
Pat.
Appreciate you talking with us. And thank you for joining us on Inside Politics. Hope you'll be back here again for a future show. If you can't get enough news in politics in the meantime, go to the News Channel 5 website. You'll find my Capitol View commentary there. A new commentary posted every Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.